Welcome to part 3 of these beer and business application review of Getting Naked and how the principles on that book applies to Dynamics 365, consulting, solution architecture, all this stuff that we do day in and day out. If you haven't watched the previous 2 videos, go back and watch those. There's links below for those videos because we discussed fear number 1 and fear number 2. Fear number 1. Fear number 1 is...
How does he know that the links are below?
Well, I'm gonna take care of that. I'll teach you later.
Okay.
But we're gonna talk about fear number 3 today. So I went,
right?
Again, yeah, stupid question. So fear number 1.
Into it now? Is it
Fear number 1. Fear number 1 is the fear of losing business, as we talked about. Fear number 2 is the fear of being embarrassed, and now it's time we talk about fear number 3, which is the fear of feeling inferior. Right? The fear of feeling inferior, and I talked about, this is not about our intellectual pride, but rather about preserving our sense of importance and social standing relative to the client. Okay? So once again, when we think about that fear, the fear of feeling inferior, I think that, again, the idea is to get over that, and the book recommends a couple things that we can try to get over this fear. Number 1 is take a bullet for the client. They're talking about taking a bullet for the client. Now, this is not about enabling the client to do the wrong thing by blindly just absorbing the blame for them. It's about finding moments where we can humble ourselves and sacrificially take some of the burden off of a client and in a difficult situation, and then obviously, like we talked about before, confront them with a kind truth, right? We talked about this in fear number 1, fear of losing the business. We have to bring it up and talk about these things, even though we might lose the business. If the client did something wrong, maybe the project's not going well, maybe we were too ambitious about going live on a date or whatever it is, we need to take ownership for that because we're working on the project. It's kind of our responsibility that the solution is successful in a way. But at the same time, if it wasn't our fault, even though the overall solution wasn't successful, if it was something the client did, you can't just ignore it, right? And we talked about that if you don't have that confrontation, taking a bullet would be enablement. We're allowing the client to just make mistakes because they'll know that we'll always say that it was our fault. What do you guys think about that?
It's related to getting the trust as well. And deadlines is a typical example. So what would you do if you know that you cannot deliver on that day? Would you rush it and deliver something that is subpar? Or would you be honest with the customer and go and tell them, look, we've underestimated what we've done, we've made a mistake, we might look stupid, but hey, if you give us another week, then we can guarantee that we can give you a better deliverable. And then a week later, you do a good job. So to me, it makes sense. Sometimes, don't be afraid of, looking bad in front of the customer, as long as you're truthful and you're, looking for the best interest of the customer as opposed to yours.
Can you think of any example in the past where you took some blame from the client, like knowing that it wasn't really your fault or 100% your fault, and you essentially did that and it saved face for the client, like you took a bullet for them in a sense, but then obviously you had to have the conversation. Can you think of anything in the past where you've done that?
Yeah. I was, and this is a very specific example where I was working on enabling the Dynamics 365 Outlook app. And when you go to that page...
I'll drink to that.
Cheers,
I
guys.
feel sorry.
Enabling it or not enabling it?
Enabling it. When you go to that page, you can either select the user that you want and click on enable, or you can click on a button that says enable for everybody that is eligible.
Yeah, so you mean the ad for Outlook, right?
The app for Outlook, that's the one. I was very diligent and I made sure that I actually just select the ones that we wanted and I enabled it for them so that we don't get into a change management frenzy and people would see a button and would freak
What
out.
is this?
And then I come the next day and they're like, oh, it's enabled for everybody. And I knew that one of the administrators from the client side went there and said, yeah, it's one of those steps, click on it, enable for everybody. And then the trend and everything, it went out for everybody. And I'm like, oh, I must have made that mistake. It's my bad. and we'll fix it. And then we went and we helped them. We wrote a little script, and then we supported them in that space.
Did you say it like it's my bad? And John, can we step out for a second?
Let me talk to you first.
Talk to me later.
One on one.
Yeah, and I didn't want them to really point the finger and say, oh, that person did a bad job.
Yeah.
And, easy way to get fired, or we'll add to the black points if you want that they've had. So I took ownership of that, and I'm like, well, don't worry about it. Well, there's a way out. We can fix it, and then we quickly addressed it basically. And I took one for the team, right? And typically, like when I'm leading a team as well, I take ownership for everything that goes out, right? And I do tell them, if you guys made a mistake, it's probably because I didn't do my peer review or I didn't check your work. So if there's someone to blame, blame me. Don't blame anyone else in the team, because I'm the face.
I'll deal with them later.
I'm from Lebanon. You don't even know.
There's a fundamental rule of customer service, which is never let the client feel like an a-hole. And it works for consulting as well, right? So we got a go live happen relatively recently. It was supposed to be an AX, so I work with F&O and AX now. It was an AX upgrade from 2012 to R3. And for AX, that's massive. This is basically going to our online architecture, so splitting databases, splitting data, reworking data, etc. One of the requirements that the client had taken on was to build the production system, the target system we were going to. And we, leading up, we could kind of see that the client wasn't going to get ready in time. We go, are you sure you're ready for this weekend? Yeah, no, we'll be fine. Sure you're ready for this weekend? Yeah. How about a plan B? How about we just talk about a plan? Oh, no, it's going to happen this weekend. It's going to happen this weekend. Friday before the weekend. No, we haven't got the production system up and ready. Okay, so let's now talk about it. Rather than saying, I told you so, why don't we deal with this earlier, or it made them feel, you just deal with the situation. If you make them feel like a-holes, then that doesn't do anything for the relationship. No one thanks you for making them feel bad.
Right.
So we took on the responsibility of building a production server. We built it in the following week, and then we went live in the following week. You don't make a big deal of it, and you just get on with it, and you're in it together, right? You're there as a collective trying to come to the same goal.
How does that match your policy of always never take responsibility, or if it was the customer, like how do you bring it up? Like I'm just curious.
Look, I'm thinking not so much from customer's perspective point of view.
Yeah.
Technically, if they didn't tell you something, as a consultant, that's your fault.
Yeah.
You didn't question them enough. That's what it is.
Yeah.
Unless they deliberately hidden something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah, our business is doing great. Yeah. Well, you know how it is. But
Let's keep it real.
Yeah, let's keep it real. So the situation that I find myself quite frequently in is where I have to take the blame for something that Microsoft does. Right?
Yeah.
That's kind of how often. I think that happens more often than taking blame for the customer, right?
Yeah.
Customer says,
But that also applies, right?
This is shit, right? And you say, my fault, my bad, right? Well, it's
Often you
not
recommend a solution which, according to the marketing materials from Microsoft, is going to meet the need, right? And often when you implement that solution, you get into the weeds. Suddenly, maybe that
Not so
function
great.
doesn't work quite as it was once described. And so you can go to the client and say, I recommended it, but Microsoft got it wrong. Or you can say, look, obviously I didn't know this as well as I should have done. How about we work together to work out the next best option?
It happened to me with customer insights. Like the first time they had customer insights, I was pimping customer insights to this customer. It was in preview, and I'm like, oh man, once this thing becomes like out of preview, it's gonna be the best thing ever. Like, oh my god, let me show you this. I did demos with it. I got like an instance with customer insights set up. Like Ulrich, CRM guy, he helped me with. Like it was just awesome, right? And then Microsoft killed it. Like he never made it out of preview, and I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm like, so then you have to go and save face, like you mentioned, and be like, well, the AI capabilities, Microsoft want to make sure that everyone has access to it, so they're working on releasing that publicly. You don't have to pay for it anymore. So you have to kind of save face for it, but then you have to have a conversation with Microsoft, like, dude, you should have, like, just had this deal, and you let me know what's going on here. Like, so that it can apply either way. So here's another one. Another one about getting over this fear is making everything about the client. And I think this connects to what you said on fear number one, which is I don't want them to think there's anyone else. Right? I know they know there's another client, but I don't want them to think about it. But this is what I wrote. It says, throw your full attention into the world of the client. Do not try to shift attention to ourselves and our level of experience or knowledge. Make it clear that our focus is on understanding, honoring, and supporting the business of the client. We downplay our own accomplishments and allow the client to discover them for themselves. Like, you're not out there being like, yeah, I did that. Like, let the client figure it out. If they figure it out, good. If not, so be it. But it's all about the client. What do you guys think about this one?
Yeah, Satya Nadella talks about that actually. He says, in a meeting, talk less, listen more, and then once they're done talking, then give them firm advice on what they need to do. So it's not about interrupting them and saying, oh, you're getting it wrong, we're doing this, we're doing that. Just listen to what they're saying, and then once you internalize and process what they're doing, then you can give them advice. Now, in terms of making them feel like they came up with the solution, I do that all the time because it's not about me. I know that stuff. Again, I've had more than a decade of experience in the public sector. As I said, 80% of my customers want the exact same thing, and I don't want to dictate what they need to do, but I lead them to that solution, and I do that by asking them questions. And the customers that know me very well realize that I'm doing that. So I go and ask them a few questions, like, have you thought about X, Y, and Z?
Do you want to make it easier, or do you want to make it harder? What's it going to be? I want it easier. Great idea.
Customer pitches to you, it's like, Rami, our business is unique, and you kind of internally inside, you kind of go.
Tell him to this guy.
Tell him to this guy. Yeah.
Are you unique, just like everybody else?
Yeah.
Right?
So how you work with that? You know that they tell you unique, but you see that.
Yeah.
Right through that, and you say, "Of course you are."
Yeah, exactly.
You're not.
Yes.
You're unique.
That's for sure.
But I've seen this work somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it might not be completely like it, but maybe it'll apply. Why don't we talk about that?
What I found? I found useful when you can come up with the example of that kind of supports their uniqueness, but at the same time deflates their bubble.
Yeah.
If you come up with the example from absolutely unrelated industry.
Sure.
I said, we're a government, we kind of manage cases.
Didn't you do a project for like a brothel or
But
something?
I've seen
Like,
it.
One time.
Leon did a project for a brothel. Like this
A
would
long time ago.
We've kind of connected to this video.
This is in a previous slide.
Not dynamics.
Different CRM system.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, I did.
But like there was. I remember
I
watching
was like,
this.
yes, I've seen it all before.
I remember watching this TV show where like this guy cheated on his girlfriend or something while they were on a break or something. It was not Friends. It's another one. But then she asked this question, like, because the guy cheated on her, is like, she asked the question, is like, when you were with her, were you thinking about me the whole time, or did you not think of me at all? The guy's like, like, they're both bad, like, I don't even know what to say. That's what I feel like when a customer says, like, we're unique, like, is it, we're unique, or have you done this before? It's like, I don't know, like, I want to say I've done it before to show I have experience, but I also want to say you're unique, so it's like, which one it is, right?
Let me bring in a slightly unrelated or on a tangent question. Like, when you see something and you've done a boo-boo in architecture or something, but customer doesn't notice.
Right.
Customer is oblivious. At what point you raise your hand, or you just let it slide?
Never. Never hide.
Never raise your hand. No, never raise it.
Never hide the
Just
facts.
leave it at that.
Yeah, no, always be upfront. The moment it happens, I go straight away to the customer and say, you've made a mistake. This is what
But
it
I
is.
think
This is how much.
I think it's important that you not only admit that you made a mistake and you own it, but you also provide a solution. Like, like, I messed up, but here's what I'm going to do.
Okay, do you artificially create mistakes so that?
No, I don't think so.
I once had a system where we'd implemented it, and I was delivering the training. And so the people in the training, one of those classic errors earlier in my career. Let's use that excuse. Were the people that weren't in the workshops.
Last week.
It was last week. But I'm showing the system, and I'd use like a one-to-one.
Earlier this day in my career.
Yeah.
I'd use the one-to-end relationship. They go, no, effectively they said we need an end-to-end there.
Yeah.
I'm in training now, and it's going live tomorrow. So basically, we had to workshop. The training session became a workshop. I didn't say, oh, it'll be fine. Or I didn't hide it. Okay,
Yeah.
look, obviously this has been missed.
Oh, I thought that you were delivering
workshop
unrelated training and you made your students do your work.
No. So it turned into
that's what I do.
turned into a sort of an 11th-hour workshop.
Here's another abstract
Yeah.
example.
You know,
fix the system.
in order to practice how to add fields, can you please add this 180 fields?
That'd be a great way to train. Right?
Exactly.
So the training became a workshop, and so we had to do a rapid fix to this one area. It wasn't massively fundamental to the overall system, but
Definitely.
we had to do it. Yeah, just
No,
admit it,
Liam
tell it all,
doesn't
tell it
know
fast.
cardinality of the relationship.
Here's another one. Here's another one that kind of relates to what we just talked about is honor the client's work. And what they mean by that is if you can't take interest or honor what the client does for their business, then you should probably not be doing that work or that project. Like if you're not interested at all in what they're doing, or perhaps you don't even support it. Let's say they're on a kind of business that you disagree with, that you can't get excited about, that you completely don't. Well, that's, I don't know. Like I feel like
I was
No,
young,
some people
I needed
might
the money.
No, but if,
I needed money. $20 is $20.
no, but seriously, imagine the situation when you have a moral stand against something that they do.
Yeah.
Right. How would you
I
approach
have
that? And you are
happens.
employed. Let's say you're
I have this on
employed.
projects, not that I've worked on, but so I work for Power Optics. Power Optics is owned by a company called HCL. They're an Indian company. India's chock full of religions, including Muslim religion. We had a project this year with a alcohol supply company, so a company that do retail alcohol supply. And a couple of the consultants said, "Look, I'm Muslim. I feel very uncomfortable working for a client that's in this industry, and you have to respect that."
Yeah,
I
I agree.
have no issue with that at all. And there are certain industries where I would say I'm not comfortable doing this work. Please leave this to another consultant. And even my boss respects that, or my boss doesn't
it gets
respect that.
stickier when you're in the midst of the project and customer does something that you consider unethical.
That is true, yeah.
To us, and how you bring it up, it's like going back to question 1 and question 2, like how you raise your voice and say, look, I didn't know you that kind of a person. How you bring it up? How you raise both, you risking the entire project.
I guess for me, I fortunately have never been on a project where I disagree with their business. I mean, all my projects.
But let me
have
give
been-
you the hypothetical.
No, I know, but I'm just trying to think like
Hypothetical
what happens if suddenly like I don't know ISIS wants CRM and they want to hire me, right? Like how do I react to that? And
Oh, let me talk to you later.
No, but like,
seriously.
I've been lucky in
That's
that.
kind of you know upfront what you're facing. But let's say you're hired by a bank to do some implementation for their department, blah blah blah. Long story short, turns out it's money laundering, right? How you deal with that?
That's when you do revenue sharing. We were talking about it in another video, yeah. All right, so here's another one. I want to hear this one from you because I do this all the time, but it's not common sometimes, which is do the dirty work. Okay, what that means is do what you
take
need
the
to
contract
do.
of money laundering.
Right, exactly. Do what you need to do within the context of the services. Sometimes what the client needs isn't as attractive or as exciting as we would like. In doing so, we earn their loyalty and gratitude. Meaning like maybe you as a solution architect are not responsible for, I don't know, helping them come up with a training plan. Like how are they gonna train their users? Like maybe that's not, like that's below you in some, like for me it's hard because I think everything is like nothing is below me. Like I'll add fields, I'll do whatever, right? But how do you feel about the principle of do the dirty work? Like if you need to go out there and clean up some data before it gets imported,
I'll add fields. I'll do whatever. That's it.
I'll do anything.
I even will add fields.
I'll do even fields. Yeah.
That goes hand in hand with maybe doing some things for free, for example. So I remember I was doing deployments when I first started a long time ago, and we basically build the packages and all of that. We're like, happy days, we're going to go there and deploy it on a brand new server.
Yeah.
We tested it on our machines. It worked on my machine. Why would it work anywhere else?
Of course.
And I'm like, hang on. let me spin up a new VM back when we used to host VMs on our machines and give it a try. And I did that and I realized it didn't work. So I spent maybe about half a day to a day just making sure that I've got all the prerequisites, documentation and all of that to avoid that happening on production day.
Yeah.
And that's a very good example where I did something that was not really asked, the customer didn't really ask for, and it's not really my job to do. I can't just give it to the deployment team and say, you guys figure it out.
Definitely.
I had to take the extra step, do it for free, and then, realize that we had a few mistakes, fix them, and then make sure that the production goes.
This really brings up kind of ethical question. It's like when you make a donation, is it a donation if it's not anonymous?
What?
Donation.
Sorry?
Why not?
No, some people make a donation, like we're talking about not $1, $2, but say large donations, and they make sure that their name is attached to the donation.
Yeah.
Sometimes charities
Donations,
receive anonymous donations to the same value, and some people take the stand that it's only a true donation if it's anonymous.
Oh wow.
So, like, would you
Okay,
make your client aware of the work you did in background to make it happen, or you just say that's my professional pride on the line? I'll do it. I will never tell a soul. We didn't do a boo-boo.
I'm a big
I just-
proponent. I think you guys are too probably about letting them find for themselves. Like if they
No, it
miss
goes
or-
smoothly,
like,
as
I've
you
done-
said it would.
I've spent 4 hours working on workflows and automation that the client looks at and be like, oh, cool. Like
Yeah,
they don't
exactly.
They couldn't appreciate it at all, and I'm okay with that. Like I did the work. It works the way it's supposed to.
No, but
I feel
going back to
feel
your
proud
example.
from a solution architect perspective that that's the solution that I envision and it works, and the client didn't appreciate it, but that's fine. That's what should have been done.
But
Anyway.
that's why, going back to your example, like you spend a day honing those, prerequisites and what's not, and client kind of plugs it in and it works. It's like, meh,
Meh.
whatever, meh.
You've done your job, and that's a good thing. So, sometimes when you go and deploy something and it works, having no feedback means that you've done a good job.
Yeah.
It's not getting negative feedback.
Can't help but quote Gru from the Despicable Me. It's like, Mom, I made a rocket out of macaroons. It's like, meh.
Exactly.
Wow. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought.
Hate
All right.
those customers.
Last.
They go like, meh. Even though it's like, oh, George has his accent. It's like, meh.
Eh.
I've
All
seen
right.
better.
Last thing that we're talking about when it comes to this fear. Fear number 3 is admit your weaknesses and limitations.
100%.
One thing is to admit our mistakes, which we talked about, right? Owning our mistakes. The other is to admit our weaknesses. So we all have weaknesses. Don't try to be something you're not. It's exhausting and it prevents us from doing our best in areas where we can thrive. So sometimes this can happen. Like somebody can say, it's like, oh, field service? I'm an expert. Like I'll figure it out. I'll make it happen. And then you end up working this insane amount of time as you're trying to learn it as you go, rather than saying like, oh, field service is not my strength. Like maybe we can get somebody to help us. Let me just focus on something else. So how do you feel about admitting your weaknesses and limitations?
Absolutely. That's rule number 1 as a solution architect. You don't know everything. You need to rely on everybody on your team.
Unless you're George.
You're George, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah. But you need to rely on your team and the strength of your team to complement
Except field service.
what you're working on.
The consultant should never be afraid to say, I don't know, I'll get back to you.
Absolutely.
For me, that differentiates an excellent consultant from a consultant.
Yeah.
So I'm an MVP. People assume I know everything about the product, and I don't.
Wrong.
No, none of us do.
Yep.
And so I go to the medics. Definitely scared people are going to ask me questions.
Yeah.
But there's no shame in saying, I don't know. Let me find you someone that does, who
Absolutely.
knows Power BI, who knows Flow better than I do. Here's someone who's not even MVP, who's on my team that I know that knows this area really well. There's no shame in that, and that gets to the end goal, right? That gets them the answer they need. That earns you the respect. You don't have to say, you don't have to make up an answer. If you make up an answer,
don't have to know
which is wrong,
everything. You
you
just
make an
don't
answer
have
which
to
is
know
wrong,
everything.
that they're gonna never trust you again. You know, if you say, this is how you do it.
How suspicious
then
will
if
you
I-
guys be of someone who claims they know everything? when it comes to
completely.
dynamics.
If they put wisdom out constantly, for example.
I
Yes.
love the people that tell me I know 90% of X, 90% of .NET, or 90% of Dynamics. I'm like, if you don't know what 100% is, how do you know 90%? That does not make sense. And one thing is for sure is that after I wrote my book, I realized how much I don't know about the platform. I realized how naive I was by saying I am an expert in that.
I know 90%, and you start writing. It's like,
Exactly.
oh.
So I can write a book about it, and when I wrote the book, I'm like, I didn't know about this and that. And I confess, when everybody asks me about portals, for example, I'm not a portals expert, and I rely on the people in my team to do the portals implementation.
Absolutely.
When it comes, and I'm very clear that I'm one of the worst people to work on user interface when it comes to HTML and CSS and all of that. I think only people with turtleneck can do things.
So
like
what
that.
do you do?
What?
Very
Rami,
sorry.
do you know anything? Like, what do you
Knows how
know?
to fake it.
Why are you here? Who are you?
But what did you do to Rami?
And what's really important is not to bullshit.
Right.
Absolutely.
So when I'm interviewing people, I drill into the bits where I feel like they're bullshitting.
10 years Power Ups experience.
Yeah, something like that.
What? Wait, what? Oh, like today, what was it? The guy that said that he's been using CRM 2017? That was hilarious. Like, was it at the keynote or something? I don't know. It was like in a session there. I think it was your session where they were asking. I think Rami was asking, like, who's on prem, who's online, like, what version are you in? And the guy's like, we're in like CRM 2017. He's like, what?
Oh, that one.
Using it in CRM.
And Rami
version
was
two.
like, okay. I love how you just kept it cool. Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Yeah, you're unique. All right.
Yeah, well, you're almost there.
But
Only
yeah,
a couple
I mean-
years old.
Yeah, so a typical thing that I do in interviews is get them to the point where I'll get them to either, wait for them to say, I honestly don't know, or for them to give me a bullshit answer.
Yeah.
And that is the decision point where I'm like, okay, if I'm working with them on a one-on-one perspective, they're either going to bullshit their way through that, or they're going to take ownership and say, I don't know, or I made a mistake, or something like that. And I think this is very important from a behavioral perspective to get someone who's honest
100%.
and would say, no, I don't know.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you
Never
so much.
had that.
Never had. Thank you so much for discussing these 3 fears with us. Great insight. Hopefully, people watching enjoyed it. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Salud.